Guys, welcome to video number 2 of the competition preparation series. Hopefully this is going to give you an insight into everything that's involved in terms of competition preparation. And that's the whole idea of the series. So if you haven't watched the introduction, please go and watch that. It's only a couple minutes. Gives you a little bit of insight into why I'm doing this, what I'm hoping to achieve, and take you along for the ride. So hoping to cover everything competition preparation related. So not just the fat loss phase itself, but in terms of what we're going to talk about today, which is the improvement phase, setting up a successful competition prep. As a coach, as a competitor for a number of years, I'm sure that if you have competed or you're looking at competing, I'm sure this will be somewhat helpful, somewhat insightful, and maybe you'll get you questioning some things that you have done or will do. We'll dig straight in. So essentially, when you are planning a competition or you're planning a second one, if you've done it before, you're looking to maximize your progress between those shows. Now, that's what I like to call improvement season. Others will call it an off season. I tend to, prefer improvement season. That's the goal. The goal is to improve. And when you're in a calorie surplus, that's when you're in a position to actually make significant improvements. Essentially, that was the goal since I stepped off stage 2019 on my last show, end of 2019. And the goal at that stage was always to have 3 years off. Now, the reason I had planned to have 3 years off was I knew that I needed significant improvement. Now, this wasn't to do with placings. This wasn't to do with anything necessarily from a competition perspective, so to speak. It was more so from what I could see from my physique and what I could see in terms of what was lacking, what needed improvement, and what needed, just better balance. So it was also a reason or a decision to have a little bit more time away to focus more on business, a little bit more time to focus on, clients and focus on things that weren't all comp related. Even though I love competition, I love competing, it's not everything to me. And I care a lot about the clients I work with. I care a lot about, friends. I care a lot about family. I care a lot about a lot of things, a lot of people. So it was a good opportunity to step away from that. Having competed in 2015, 2016, competed, over both seasons. Took a break 2017, competed again 2018, and then competed again in 2019. So that was the big reason why I wanted to have some time away, both to improve my physique, but to focus on other things. But it didn't mean that I had to stop working on areas that would help me when the time was right to step back on stage. So that 3 years was always the intention, and during that time, I was able to make, I think, some considerable improvement. I shared a post recently on my Instagram, which you're welcome to go and check out. Got my Instagram handle above and below. So check that out. Let me know your thoughts. If you have seen them, I'd love to hear your comments, positive, negative, whatever it is. At the end of the day, the thing with all of this, especially when we look at improvement phases, is that there's always, in hindsight, there's always things you could have done slightly differently or slightly better. And I know that even though I'm quite happy with the progress that I've made, I know that had I done it again, there could have been some small improvements from a planning perspective and also execution. So hopefully you guys can learn from that as well. I'll take you through the specific phases that I went through, the weight and how that was manipulated over time, how I pushed to new highs, and obviously the process that's involved with that. But I hope you find this really insightful. I hope you can get something out of it. Okay, so in terms of the timeline, the first phase that I ran through after we followed the reverse process, and at this time, again, as I said, I was coaching myself, essentially from competition right up until beginning of August 2020, is when I was essentially reversing and then building up calories and focusing on that first big improvement phase. Okay, so essentially at the end of that improvement phase, I was 73.1 kilos. The focus was to keep building up my legs. I had at that time to focus on my quads and in general just chest and back, but back primarily. So 73.1 kilos is what I was 10th of August. As I said, that's sort of when I finished that first improvement phase where calories got up to about 3,200, so not super high enough. And again, that weight was an all-time high at 73.1 kilos. So basically a large improvement phase, and included, of course, the recovery, totaling probably about 10 months. And I think it was reasonably productive. Could have been a little bit more aggressive towards the end of that, but I think all in all, that first improvement phase sort of did the job, and pushed the calories and the weight up to basically an all-time high. And then essentially I did that cut. Now I planned to do that cut for basically 8 weeks, but I ended up extending that to about 11. So essentially I extended that for a couple of reasons, mainly to get to book in some photo shoots. I booked in 3 photo shoots with Jared Taylor, Andrew Hammond, and also Muscat Media. So again, just a bit of marketing material. I decided just to push it a little bit more, and obviously, first time being lean since comp, it was kind of a cool thing to kind of see, how much had I improved from that first larger improvement phase. So I ended up extending that. So I went from 73.1 kilos down to 69.2. So it didn't drop too much, about 4 kilos. Keep in mind when I stepped off stage, or when I jumped on stage last time, I was about 65. So I was still about 4 kilos up. And it was nice to see sort of what the body was looking like. I got a DEXA at the same time, it was 8.25%. Again, just a number. I think it all comes down to how you look at the end of the day, but it was a good, interesting metric just to see what that was. Obviously, I started straight after that, straight back into an improvement phase, improvement phase number 2. Essentially, I ran that all the way until from November until March 2021. Now, this basically that second improvement phase wasn't as long as I had initially planned. So I would have liked to go a little bit longer. We had a team photo shoot for the pro team, and I wanted to be a part of that with the clients. So essentially I brought that mini cut forward a little bit. This one was much more of a traditional mini cut in my eyes, so a little bit more aggressive, shorter term, so only 5 weeks time. So I started that cut at 74.6 kilos, again an all-time high by about 1.5 kilos. And then I finished that cut 5 weeks later at 70.5 kilos. So again, I was still able to see some good improvements over that second phase, but probably not as productive, particularly that being over Christmas period, with holidays and things like that. But nonetheless, still was able to make some progress there. But it was the next building phase from there, which was the most productive, improvement phase 3. Now, I think that's for a number of reasons. I think I was getting closer towards what I knew would be, start of prep in 2022. So I think that was a big reason as well. I think I was already starting to think about the idea of having a coach for, leading into the next prep, which I now do. And I think time and necessity was part of it. I also started seeing Dan Marshall. So Dan Marshall, basically somebody who's doing my training program. He's located here on the Gold Coast in Burleigh, so not far from me. And basically I was able to identify and focus on some of the niggles that were really slowing me down and hindering my performance, but more importantly, my physique development. So I'll talk a lot more about that potentially in another episode. But essentially I started that next cut after obviously 30th of April, so I was 70.5 kilos. I was able to push that all the way up to 81.4 kilos to the end of November. So it was a very, very productive phase. Obviously all-time high previously was 74.6, so I was able to push nearly up to 82. Now, midway through that improvement phase, when I engaged Joey Cantlin, who is now my coach, I'll pop his details as well below, just in case you want to give him a follow or, reach out to him. But I've known him for quite some time, and I reached out to him for a number of reasons, but mainly similar values, similar I've known him since 2015, competed against him. We've had clients versus each other, and we've had some good battles on and off the stage. So a really good person that I really wanted to engage in and to help me through this process. I think he's the right person for it. So had a really productive improvement phase 3 there, and essentially from that stage into November, we started what we call more of like a pre-prep. So it was a long pre-prep, basically to bring that weight back down after improvement phase 3. Basically finished that 20th of February, so not too long ago now, just over a month, at 75.7 kilos. So able to drop quite a significant amount of weight in that time, but still hold on to some really good mass. And since the 20th of February, 4 weeks at maintenance, and I was able to hold that, so the end of the 4 weeks of maintenance was sitting at 76.2. And that was my official starting prep weight at 76.2. So yeah, I think hopefully that gives you like a bit of a summary of how that improvement phase or phases looked over the last 3 years. I guess a little bit less because obviously about 2.5, and then by the time I finish prep it'll be 3 years. But 3 primary improvement phases, 3 cuts, and hopefully a bit of an understanding of the process that it may take in terms of getting to stage, especially if it's your 2nd, 3rd or 4th time and you're looking to make significant improvements. So remember, that's not the only way to do it. There are things that I would change in the future, but perhaps engage Joey a little bit earlier again. But in saying that, I think we're still able to make some really great progress, set myself up to be in a really good position. And now that I have Joey and Dan both working with me, I feel really blessed, and I feel really confident that this is going to be a really successful prep. So stay tuned. Hopefully that helps. Drop some comments, drop any questions you have. If you want me to go into more detail about anything, let me know. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. Make sure you give this a like, share it on Instagram if you really did like it. That would be much appreciated. Obviously this is just starting out, this is all very new. So yeah, chuck a subscribe, chuck a follow, chuck a like, chuck a comment, share it if you love it, and spread the word. But hopefully this whole series will give you an insight into everything that goes into a prep, not just a bit of fat loss. So thanks guys, and I will see you in the next one.